Most people were never taught how to handle money in business without guilt, fear, or confusion. They grow up hearing that faith and finance don't mix, yet they secretly want to make money, build something meaningful, and still honor God. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem was never money itself, but the lack of biblical structure behind it, and that's why so many well-intentioned believers work hard, earn well, and still feel financially stuck. What if the Bible has always offered a framework that modern business only recently rediscovered? A way to pay yourself with wisdom, avoid silent financial traps, and protect both your calling and your future. Most people pay themselves emotionally, impulsively, or out of pressure, then wonder why peace disappears as income grows. This video challenges a deeply rooted belief that spirituality means financial disorder. In reality, biblical principles bring clarity, structure, and freedom to those who are willing to apply them. If you like our content, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. In the next few minutes, you'll discover how biblical stewardship aligns perfectly with sound business strategy, why paying yourself the right way matters more than how much you earn, and how to build a financial system that serves God's purpose instead of fighting it. This isn't theory. It's wisdom designed to help you move differently with money, starting now. Biblical stewardship: why God cares about how you handle money. Stewardship is not a modern concept created by the business world. It's a biblical principle rooted in Genesis. From the very beginning, God entrusted resources to humanity with responsibility, not ownership. Money in Scripture is never portrayed as evil, but as a test of the heart. How someone manages money reveals whether they see themselves as owners or stewards. Luke 16:11 says, "If you have not been faithful in unrighteous wealth, who will trust you with true riches?" That verse quietly reframes how one should think about make money in business. A theologian with financial wisdom understands that God cares less about how much you make money and more about how you manage what flows through your hands. Biblical stewardship teaches discipline, order, and intentionality. Proverbs 21:5 reminds us that the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. This applies directly to business decisions, cash flow, and how one pays themselves. Money is not random, it follows structure, planning, and obedience. When stewardship is ignored, confusion and stress often follow close behind. In practical terms, stewardship means recognizing that income is not permission for chaos. A wise entrepreneur treats business income with reverence, setting boundaries before spending. For example, before someone decides to withdraw profits, they should already have clarity on taxes, reserves, and reinvestment. This mirrors Joseph's strategy in Genesis 41, where he stored grain during years of abundance to prepare for famine. That wasn't just survival. It was divine financial intelligence applied in real life. There's also a spiritual maturity that comes when someone stops reacting emotionally to money. Ecclesiastes 5:10 warns, "Whoever loves money never has enough." Biblical stewardship breaks that cycle by teaching contentment and wisdom. Instead of impulsively spending or overpaying themselves, a steward pauses, plans, and prays. In business, this might look like setting a consistent draw strategy rather than draining accounts every time revenue increases. That discipline keeps both faith and finances aligned. From a financial educator's lens, stewardship is what separates those who temporarily make money from those who build lasting wealth. Many people earn well but collapse because they lack structure. Scripture supports systems, order, and accountability. 1 Corinthians 14:40 states, "Let all things be done decently and in order." That includes money, business accounts, and how income flows from the company to the individual. Order protects both vision and peace. What's interesting is that stewardship always introduces a second idea quietly in the background: separation. The Bible consistently distinguishes between what is sacred and what is common, what belongs to God and what is entrusted to man. That same principle begins to raise an important question about boundaries in business and money, one that naturally leads into understanding why separation is not optional, but essential. Separation is a principle, what the Bible teaches about order, boundaries, and money. Separation is one of the first principles God establishes in Scripture. In Genesis 1, God separates light from darkness, land from water, and day from night. This pattern reveals that order precedes growth. In the same way, money and business thrive when boundaries are clearly defined. When someone fails to separate what belongs to the business from what belongs to personal life, confusion enters quietly and destroys clarity. Biblical wisdom teaches that boundaries are not restrictions, they are protections. From a theological and financial perspective, mixing accounts is not just a bookkeeping mistake. It reflects a mindset problem. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. In modern terms, guarding the heart includes guarding how money flows. When business funds are treated casually, it becomes difficult to make money consistently and responsibly. Clear separation creates accountability, which is essential for sustainable growth. Practically speaking, separation means having distinct systems. A wise entrepreneur sets up a business bank account, pays expenses from that account, and only transfers money intentionally. This approach mirrors the biblical principle found in Leviticus, where offerings were designated for specific purposes. In today's world, intentional money movement protects both integrity and peace of mind. It also simplifies decision-making when revenue increases or seasons fluctuate. There is also a spiritual consequence to ignoring separation. Jesus teaches in Matthew 6:24 that no one can serve two masters. When finances are tangled, stress often replaces stewardship. People begin reacting emotionally instead of strategically. Paying oneself without structure may feel freeing at first, but it often leads to instability. Separation restores control, allowing business decisions to be driven by wisdom rather than impulse. Financial educators often say that systems create freedom, and Scripture agrees. 1 Corinthians 10:23 reminds us, "I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial." Just because money is available does not mean it should be used freely. Establishing boundaries ensures that when you make money, it strengthens the business instead of weakening it. Freedom grows where discipline is honored. What becomes clear is that separation naturally introduces a deeper conversation about timing. Once boundaries are established, the next challenge is knowing when and how much to take. Wisdom is not only about separation, but also about balance, a balance that Scripture speaks about repeatedly when addressing provision and preservation. Paying yourself with wisdom. Biblical balance between provision and preservation. The Bible never teaches believers to neglect their needs, but it consistently warns against excess and short-sighted decisions. First, Timothy 5:8 makes it clear that provision matters. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives has denied the faith. Paying yourself in business is not greed, it is responsibility. Wisdom, however, lies in knowing how much to take and when. Money should support life, not sabotage the future of the business that produces it. A seasoned, biblical financial educator understands that provision without preservation leads to collapse. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." Many entrepreneurs make money quickly, then overdraw from their business as if the income were guaranteed. Wisdom teaches restraint. Paying yourself intentionally allows the business to breathe, grow, and remain stable during slower seasons. In practical terms, balance looks like setting a clear draw strategy. For example, one might decide to pay themselves monthly instead of randomly, leaving reserves for taxes and operations. This mirrors the wisdom of ants in Proverbs 6:8, which store provisions in season. In modern business, this could mean allocating funds into separate accounts for taxes, reinvestment, and personal income. Structure transforms money from stress into strategy. Preservation also requires emotional discipline. Ecclesiastes 7:12 teaches that wisdom preserves those who have it. When revenue increases, temptation often follows. New income invites impulsive upgrades, risky investments, or oversized withdrawals. A wise entrepreneur pauses before reacting. Instead of immediately spending, they evaluate how this money can strengthen long-term vision. Preservation is not fear, it is foresight guided by faith. From an American market perspective, many successful business owners reinvest strategically rather than overpaying themselves early. Investing in tools, education, or even conservative assets like index funds can create stability. Books such as The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham or The Richest Man in Babylon reinforce this ancient principle. Money that is respected multiplies. Money that is rushed disappears. This balance between provision and preservation ultimately reveals the heart. Luke 12:15 warns, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed." Paying yourself wisely protects not only your finances but your calling. Once balance is understood, the next challenge becomes recognizing the subtle dangers that quietly pull people away from wisdom. Dangers Scripture openly names and warns against. Avoiding financial sin, greed, impulsiveness, and poor money decisions. The Bible treats financial behavior as a spiritual matter long before it becomes an economic one. Greed, in Scripture, is not about having money but about being controlled by it. Colossians 3:5 equates greed with idolatry, a strong statement that forces reflection. In business, greed often disguises itself as ambition, urgency, or just this once. When someone begins to make money, the temptation to take more than wisdom allows becomes subtle but dangerous. Impulsiveness is one of the fastest ways to sabotage a growing business. Proverbs 20:21 warns that an inheritance gained hastily in the beginning will not be blessed in the end. This principle applies directly to overpaying oneself too early. Sudden income can trigger emotional decisions, luxury purchases, risky investments, or draining the business account. Wisdom teaches pause. Money rewards patience, not pressure-driven choices. From a practical standpoint, avoiding financial sin means building friction into decisions. A wise entrepreneur does not move money instantly after it arrives. Instead, they allow time for clarity. For example, waiting 30 days before increasing personal draws creates space to assess expenses, taxes, and upcoming needs. This mirrors Jesus' teaching in Luke 14:28 about counting the cost before building. Business growth demands the same discipline. Poor money decisions often come from ignoring counsel. Proverbs 15:22 reminds us that plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. In modern business, this might look like consulting a CPA, financial advisor, or trusted mentor before major financial moves. Those who consistently make money but refuse guidance often repeat the same mistakes. Wisdom multiplies when humility is present. There is also a moral responsibility attached to business income. When finances are mismanaged, stress spills into relationships, health, and faith. Ecclesiastes 5:12 highlights that peace comes from balanced labor, not excessive gain. Paying yourself wisely preserves emotional stability. Money should serve the mission, not dominate it. When business decisions honor peace, clarity increases across every area of life. What becomes evident is that avoiding greed and impulsiveness naturally leads to a broader conversation about responsibility. Once emotional decisions are restrained, attention shifts toward preparation, especially for obligations that cannot be ignored. This sets the stage for understanding how wisdom prepares for taxes, seasons, and long-term growth in business. Money, business, and responsibility. Preparing for taxes, seasons, and growth. Responsibility is one of the clearest indicators of spiritual and financial maturity. Romans 13:7 teaches believers to give what is owed, including taxes. In business, ignoring tax obligations does not make them disappear, it only magnifies future pressure. A wise steward understands that when they make money, a portion already has an assignment. Planning for taxes is not pessimism. It is obedience paired with intelligence. From a practical standpoint, responsible entrepreneurs treat taxes as a non-negotiable expense. Many successful business owners set aside 25 to 30% of net income in a separate account the moment money comes in. This mirrors the principle found in Proverbs 27:23-24, which emphasizes knowing the condition of one's resources. Separating funds early removes fear later and allows clarity when paying yourself without anxiety. Seasons also matter in business. Ecclesiastes 3 reminds us that there is a time for everything. Income fluctuates, markets shift, and unexpected expenses arise. Those who failed to prepare during strong months struggle during slow ones. Wisdom teaches consistency, not reaction. Paying yourself steadily rather than aggressively allows the business to remain stable even when revenue dips temporarily. Growth introduces new levels of responsibility. As revenue increases, so does complexity. This may require upgraded accounting systems, professional support, or strategic reinvestment. In the American market, many entrepreneurs reinvest into scalable assets like automation tools, education, or even diversified investments, such as ETFs. Books like The Millionaire Next Door reinforce the biblical truth that quiet discipline often outperforms flashy success. Money behaves differently when it is respected. Proverbs 10:22 states, "The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." Sorrow often comes from mismanagement, not income itself. Responsible planning protects joy. When business finances are structured wisely, peace replaces panic and decision-making becomes clear rather than reactive. At this stage, responsibility naturally opens the door to vision. Once taxes are planned, seasons are understood, and growth is managed, the mind begins to think beyond survival. The next question becomes how to structure the future intentionally, aligning long-term vision with biblical wisdom and sustainable financial systems. Thinking long-term, biblical vision, expansion, and financial structure for the future. The Bible consistently honors those who think beyond the present moment. Proverbs 29:18 reminds us that where there is no vision, the people perish. Vision in business is not about ambition alone. It is about direction. Those who manage money wisely will understand that today's decisions shape tomorrow's stability. Paying yourself with structure is not just about now. It's about protecting what God is building long-term. Long-term thinking requires systems that can grow with the business. As income increases, informal habits become liabilities. Scripture teaches preparation, as seen in Noah's obedience, before the flood ever arrived. In modern business terms, this may look like upgrading financial structures, considering different tax elections, or building teams. Money flows more efficiently when systems are designed for expansion rather than survival. From an American market perspective, many entrepreneurs eventually restructure to optimize growth and reduce unnecessary tax pressure. This could involve strategic entity planning, retirement accounts, or diversified investments. Biblical wisdom supports this foresight. Proverbs 6:8 once again reminds us that preparation is a virtue. Those who consistently make money but fail to plan long-term often plateau despite strong income. Vision also brings patience. Hebrews 6:12 encourages believers to inherit promises through faith and endurance. Financial endurance means resisting shortcuts. Instead of pulling excessive funds early, wise leaders allow the business to compound. Compounding, whether through reinvestment, skill development, or systems, reflects God's pattern of growth: seed, time, and harvest. Structure protects legacy. Deuteronomy 8:18 reminds us that God gives the ability to produce wealth. That ability carries responsibility. Business decisions made today influence families, communities, and future generations. Paying yourself wisely ensures that money strengthens purpose instead of shortening it. Legacy is built quietly through consistency, not impulsive gains. At this point, everything connects: stewardship, separation, balance, restraint, responsibility, and vision. Together, they form a framework that allows money and business to serve calling rather than control it. With this understanding established, the foundation is set for a deeper reflection on how all these principles come together into a unified message. Everything you've heard up to this point leads to one simple truth: money responds to structure, and structure reflects wisdom. When biblical principles guide business decisions, confusion fades and clarity takes its place. Paying yourself wisely is not about restriction but alignment. Aligning provision with preservation, faith with discipline, and vision with action. The moment money becomes a tool instead of a temptation, peace begins to replace pressure. Most people never fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they lack systems. The Bible has always taught order, foresight, and stewardship long before modern finance put names to these ideas. When you choose to manage money intentionally, you step out of survival mode and into leadership. Growth becomes sustainable, and business starts serving purpose rather than consuming it. Write in the comments, "I manage my money with discipline and faith," and watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. Now the responsibility is in your hands. Will you continue reacting emotionally to income, or will you apply wisdom that compounds over time? Every financial decision you make from today forward either builds stability or invites stress. Choose structure, choose discipline. And if this message touched you in any way, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you can continue learning how faith, money, and business truly work together.